Everyone, my name is Kerry Graham and I'll be delivering the webinar that we're going to go through together today. Thanks so much for joining us at Collaboration for Impact for this webinar. Today's webinar is on how to start a collective impact initiative. What we'll be doing is deepening your understanding of the things you need to pay attention to if you're considering starting a collective impact initiative. We'll spend a couple of minutes up front overviewing what the collective impact framework is and understanding when do you apply it. And then we'll start looking at the context within your community that matters when you're considering a collective impact initiative. In turning to how to get started, there are 3 fundamental prerequisites for this way of working, and we'll walk through those. And then we'll look at the phased approach to collective impact and particularly spend some time speaking about phase 1, the first phase. And here what we're doing is we're really wanting to share with you practical tools and frameworks that you can apply in your community if you assess that they're ready for a collective impact initiative. So let's get started. All right, what is collective impact? Collective impact is a framework for achieving large-scale social change at a population level. It's very different from the dominant way that social change is created, which is a focus on organisational impact or even program or project impact. Collective impact does not work in this way. It works at looking across the efforts and resources of many organisations and many projects and programs to say, when we stand together, what can we achieve to shift an outcome or a number of outcomes for our whole population. So turning to the definition that's in the literature, collective impact is a commitment from a group of important actors from different sectors to a common agenda for solving a specific social problem. And here, the diagram or the picture underneath this definition shows us that isolated impact, or the dominant way of working in social change, can be very fragmented and isolated as each organisation or program competes against each other or operates without awareness of each other. And what we're trying to do with collective impact is create that awareness and that collaborative spirit so that the efforts and resources sitting within a community align towards achieving a population level change. It's important to note that the collective impact framework is not an academic framework. It came from the practice of a number of communities in North America who really said, with all of the effort and resources that is going into our communities, we want to see more change than what we have seen over the last couple of decades. They felt that they could do more with what they had. And so they began a conversation that really looked at examining the way they worked and seeking to achieve change by coordinating and aligning effort. And when they started achieving significant change over a period of 5 to 8 years, an organisation in the States called FSG asked a question about these communities, these lighthouse communities that have achieved significant changes in their communities over relatively short periods of time. What is it that they have in common? If we had to distill it down, what are the characteristics of the way that they were working that they shared that can help other communities understand this way of working? And FSG distilled this way of working into 5 elements, and that is the collective impact framework. The first element is common agenda. The second is shared measurement. The third is mutually reinforcing activities. The fourth is continuous communication. And the fifth is a backbone organisation. And we'll just spend a couple of minutes now spending a bit of time on each before we move into how to get started. So a common agenda. Now this is where many organisations from different parts of the community, so business, government, philanthropy, non-profits, citizens themselves, come together and agree to a shared approach to addressing a problem. Now, sometimes when multi-stakeholder gatherings come together, they can come up with their common agenda quite quickly. So a great example is an initiative in Australia, a National Suicide Prevention Coalition. Within a couple of meetings, their common agenda emerged around wanting to halve the number of suicides in Australia within 10 years. Now, often getting to this visionary change can be easier than people think, but that in and of itself is not common agenda. It's a very important part, but it's not the whole picture. What common agenda requires is a process where those that are at the collaborative table that come from very different parts of the community work together to develop a shared understanding of the problem they're trying to solve. So you can imagine the perspective of business and the perspective of government is very different. And then the perspective of someone with lived experience is very different again. And each person's experience of the problem is very valid and real, and a process is needed by where they move from their own isolated understanding of the problem that they hold from their perspective of the system towards a deeper and broader shared understanding of the problem. And it's from that position of shared understanding that new solutions and new approaches can be developed. And that in its whole, the visionary call for change, the shared understanding of the problem, and a shared approach that the collaboration can only achieve by working together, that shared approach. That in its sum is common agenda. We would say to a community that the process of setting common agenda can take up to 18 months. Married hand in glove with common agenda is shared measurement. So based on the shared understanding of the problem you're trying to tackle, you can develop baseline data, and you can then look at what are the key goals and the indicators for change that this collaboration will stand for. That's a shared measurement system. And here's an example of a very well-known collective impact initiative from North America called Strive Together. This is a Cradle to Career initiative in Cincinnati, Ohio, covering 5 local government areas. And they aligned their collaboration in the initial stages around 70 organisations, and now 9 years on, 300 organisations. They align the activity and effort and resources of all of those organisations to 5 goals around educational outcomes for children and young people from the age of birth right through to the age of around 25, their first career. And underneath those 5 goals are 53 indicators for change. And some of these are demonstrated on this slide: 4th grade reading, 8th grade maths, and so on. And they report against changes in these indicators every 6 months. This is an example of a shared measurement system. Now, as I said earlier, common agenda and shared measurements may take 18 months to develop, and that is a huge milestone in the life of a collaborative effort, but it is actually the organising of many to do the real work. So the real work is mutually aligning activities. And what this means is organisation by organisation aligning the effort and resources of many towards achieving those shared measures. So here we have a picture of cats. This is often colloquially referred to as herding cats. But what it is, it's exercising authority without organisations and business people and citizens and governments come to the collaborative table voluntarily. So it's using the influence of the collaborative effort to convince those organisations to align their effort to achieve the large-scale population level change. This is many continuous improvement activities happening across many parts of the system at the same time, simultaneously. So it's also, the activities you see here is rapid prototyping, and what that means is when something is working well, you watch it, you measure it closely, and if it works well, you do more of it, you lift it up. And similarly, if you start something and it's not working well at all, you dampen it down and you take the resources more towards the things that are working well. The glue of any collaborative effort is continuous communication. this is really understanding who needs to know what information packaged in what way and how often. Given there are multiple stakeholders and multiple lines of accountability in any collective impact initiative, it's very important to get the communications right, and it takes considerable effort and skill. And the organisation that holds the collective impact initiative together, that convenes and steers and facilitates the change, is called a backbone organisation. And here the analogy is the conductor to the orchestra. So if each member of the orchestra has deep niche skills in their instrument and they represent a different part of the community, a non-profit organisation, a government, a business, if they play without a conductor, they sound disconnected and make terrible music. But when a conductor helps them align and understand each other, beautiful music occurs. So a backbone organisation is unique to collective impact initiatives, and they have played 6 core functions. And briefly, they are to guide vision and strategy, to support the alignment of activities that we spoke about earlier, to establish the shared measurement practices and systems that an initiative needs so that many organisations can share their data and report in real time. They build public will, they build the will of the community to achieve the change. They advance policy, including policy change at a state or federal level, as well as guideline changes within bureaucracies, and of course variations to align funding behind the shared measurement system and the common agenda. And they mobilise funding for the collaborative effort. So backbones, the success of a collective impact initiative when celebrated is not the backbone that's celebrated, it is the collaborative effort that is acknowledged. The backbone is very much a servant leadership role that supports the collaboration from behind the scenes and plays this balance between coordinating and maintaining everyone's accountability while staying behind the scenes to allow for collective ownership to be authentically held by the collaborative effort. So that's a whistle-stop tour of collective impact. This slide shares with us some things to pay attention to when you're at the very beginning of considering, is the collective impact approach appropriate for my community? And if your community is grappling with an entrenched and complex social problem, then collective impact is an appropriate response, one for you to consider. But you've got to look at the factors that exist within your community to help you think, are we ready for collective impact? So some of the factors to consider is a prior history of collaboration. Now, many communities feel weary and wary of collaboration because of the number of collaborative efforts that have happened in the past. But here, regardless of success or failure, if you have a history of collaboration in your community, it's a condition, a positive condition for collective impact to be successful. Similarly, the level of connectedness between leaders within segments, for example, government leaders connected or non-profit leaders connected, but just as importantly, across segments. How connected are your government leaders to the business leaders, to local council leaders and to citizen leaders? If you can build this connectedness between leaders, you're building the precursors for collective impact. An understanding and urgency of the issue, which strengthens as collective impact takes hold in a community. The evidence to inform direction, the data you're relying on to say this is the direction that a collective impact should follow, and of course a broad base of community engagement, being able to engage across the breadth of the community and build the will for change. If you assess that you have these contextual factors present in your community, then you're more likely to be successful with a collective impact approach to solving your complex social problem. So drawing from the practice that's been documented over at least a decade now in the States, there are 3 prerequisites for collective impact that position the work for good success. The first is recruiting influential champions. And here we often know the champions from the sectors we work within or the sectors where we're most familiar, but what we're looking for here is champions from a diversity of sectors within your community, so government, business, philanthropy, citizens themselves. You need enough money to get started, the financial resources needed to convene, to broker and facilitate, to hold spaces where collaborative discussions take place and an agenda emerges. This is often difficult money to raise, but very important that there are dedicated resources for this right from the start, and that can look like funding to pay for a role, or people being released full-time or partially from their existing roles to spend time dedicated to convening a collective impact initiative. And most importantly is urgency for change. Now, often the most powerful urgency for change is collecting data, the bureaucratic data from that's within your community that tells the story of the indicators, whether that's educational indicators or homelessness or employment, whatever it may be, but married with the stories of the lived experience of your community. And the combination of both those data sets, bureaucratic data sets and the story of your community, will create an urgent call for change. So here's, I mentioned earlier, we're wanting to provide you with tools, easy to use tools. Here's the first of them. It's a way of examining how developed are these preconditions in your community. Each of the preconditions you can consider around what is working well in your community and where are the gaps. And if you complete this tool, it'll help you understand where you need to focus effort and attention to build those preconditions, those prerequisites for success. Now I'm going to breeze over this slide quickly and encourage you to return to it when you're considering starting a collective impact initiative, because it is a checklist of things that you can consider one by one around are they in place, and if not, what do I need to do to strengthen them? Again, a tool for you to use. So like any long-term and significant change process, collective impact has a life cycle in the way change occurs, and it has been documented in 4 phases. Now the first phase is very much around generating ideas and dialogue. It's engaging broadly across the community and understanding further the size and scope of the challenge you're trying to solve. And here what happens is as you learn from the community through genuine engagement, that often the scope and the focus of the collective impact initiative is refined through this process. So it's a very important early stage. With the insights and data generated by phase 1, a collective impact initiative will move into phase 2. And this is very much having understood who the champions are in your community and who the cross-sector leaders are who are most able to influence the system you're trying to change. They are the people you convene for your cross-sector group, and they go through the process of understanding the data, mapping the landscape, and identifying what is the baseline conditions we need to improve from. The important thing to note here is that in phase 3 is when the full-blown backbone infrastructure and processes are needed, and where common agenda and the shared measurement system is created. So it's important to note that in phase 3, this is probably around 18 months, 12 to 18 months into the initiative that you would be developing common agenda and shared measures, and the foundations need to be focused on and laid well in phases 1 and 2. So let's turn to phase 1. Here we want to spend some time focusing on the type of mindset or leadership and culture that needs to be brought to this work right from the start. And given that phase 1 is all around generating dialogue and ideas, we're going to look at the mindsets needed for broadly engaging with your community. So often when we talk in the past, or maybe in other roles we've played in community, when we talk to the community to seek their views, it's more like consulting them as opposed to collaborating with them. So here we're trying to draw some distinctions. A consultative mindset decides what can and can't be influenced by the community, while a more collaborative mindset says, we will determine the scope of the problem or opportunity together. A consultative mindset assesses risks that certain interest groups pose to our proposal, so we might be less inclined to engage with them, while collaborative mindsets say, who has an interest in this problem or opportunity, and let's bring them all in so we can hear their contribution. The consultative mindset provides reasonable opportunities for feedback or input, often into predetermined ideas, while the collaborative mindset is around co-designing how we work together on this challenge or opportunity. And just to reinforce, the collaborative mindset is often trying to find feedback on a certain set of options that we're holding, while a collaborative mindset says we are co-creating all the possible solutions together. And it's very much right from the start in the people who catalyse a collective impact initiative and who seek to engage others, whether they be champions or leaders within the community. It's this collaborative mindset here that is the culture you're trying to set. Another way of looking at this culture is a less collaborative mindset views stakeholders where the narrative in their mind will be that stakeholders can't grasp this level of complexity, that they're easily influenced by activists in the media. Their views are very narrow and often self-interested, apathetic, poorly educated, self-interested, and can't be objective. And this is often the voiced experience of community around being consulted. So the mindset in this case is, therefore, it's not so beneficial to collaborate with a full range of stakeholders. And the mindset you're intentionally wanting to foster and create in your collective impact initiative is that stakeholders know things we don't know. They provide us with a full range of diverse and useful perspectives. They're a source of innovation and creativity. They're very good at weighing things up and making wise decisions. They can be trusted, and they will help us do this better. Therefore, it's essential that we collaborate with them from the outset. And having this mindset is very much tangible evidence of a commitment to collaborate. Because collaboration is all about building trust, it is we say it's the currency of a collective impact initiative is trust across the segments and leaders and organisations within a community, within the system within which you're trying to make change. So here's some frameworks, some tools and some checklists that can help you get started in implementing around generating dialogue and ideas. The first is a general community engagement strategy. So most communities are made up of a significant amount of people. So how do you work out how to have meaningful and beneficial conversations with such a large group of people? Well, this framework allows you to segment at the very beginning, segment who in your community you would like to inform. So this is very much a one-to-many communication style, and then working up through the levels of engagement. Who would you like to consult and why? Who becomes more engaged again and participates and why? Who are you empowering into shared planning, and who are you enabling to take a leadership role in the community? So while you may start by segmenting the people and organisations and stakeholders in your community that you know, as for each conversation you have, you learn something and you are constantly revising who is informed, consulted, involved, empowered and enabled. And a tool to apply this framework for general community engagement and help you determine your effort and where to focus is where you can map your community on the who, as we've spoken about, then turn to how are you informing them. For example, is it newsletters or is it a pamphlet or posters, right through to how are you enabling them to take a leadership role in the community. And here it might be through being an influential champion or joining a cross-sector leadership group. But very importantly, what is the impact you want to see as a result of your engagement with these parts of the community and your method for engaging them? What is the impact you want to be able to observe from informing, from consulting, etc.? So it's a useful categorization and segmentation tool to help you with your communications and where you put your first effort. To get even more specific again, turning your mind to who are the top 100 people or organisations who are the most influential in the system within which you're trying to create change. Who are your top 100 partners? And knowing that to create change in a system, you need full system engagement. The idea is that you map your partners based on these 4 segments. Business, which would include philanthropy, government, which would include academia, non-profits, and citizens, which would include citizen groups and natural citizen leaders. And here, if you're looking to map them with somewhat equal weighting. When you know who your top 100 partners are, here's another a categorization and segmentation tool from the International Association of Public Participation that helps you get very focused and granular on, of these top 100 most influential partners, how are you engaging with them at any given time and for what purpose? So of those, who are you informing and what's your promise to them ongoing? Right through to who are you consulting to get feedback on ideas and alternatives that you're holding, decisions that you're considering making. Who are you involving throughout the process so that their concerns are understood and considered? Who are you collaborating with? Who are the subset of the top 100 partners who help you co-design and create solutions? And also, who in your top 100 partners are you engaging with most closely as your core decision-making group? And here, this decision-making group under the Empower part of this framework is really your cross-sector group that make the ultimate decision around what is the common agenda and what is the shared measurement system based on all of the work that you have done in phases 1 and 2 of the collective impact framework and all of the understanding you've gleaned from your community engagement and your engagement of your top 100 partners. So this tool not only helps you segment and categorize your top 100 partners, but helps you determine cross-sectorally who are your decision makers for this initiative. So distilling those two approaches into one tool, who are the people in your top 100 partners across this continuum? How will you talk to them, inform them, consult them, partner with them and enable them? And what is the tangible, visible impact you will see as a result of your activities with each of those segmented groups? Now, engaging champions, influential champions, or recruiting your cross-sector leadership group is an important part of the work, and who plays those early roles can be highly determinant of the momentum built and the early success of the initiative. And often we know, in terms of champions and cross-sector leaders, there are some that we know very well and are quite close to us, and others who are widely acknowledged by the community as champions and leaders, but with whom we don't have a relationship. So how do we engage those people? So here is a tool drawn from the fundraising literature or fundraising approaches around the engagement cycle of an individual. So who are the prospects? Let's identify them. What do we want to tell them? What are we informing them? And who is the best person to deliver this message? Often we know that, for, let's say, a business person may be more open to an approach from one of his or her business peers than, say, from a non-profit leader. So who will deliver the message is important for the response you're ideally looking for. How do you engage them? Never ask what you're after on the first visit. Bring them into the change process as an opportunity for them to contribute and become involved. And then once they are engaged, how do you move them from being an outsider to an insider? And then, of course, how do you steward them to keep their engagement high once they're on board? So this engagement cycle, drawn from the fundraising body of understanding and practice, can be very helpful in how to engage and approach champions or leaders in your community. So here's the same tool again in a worksheet that you can use partner by partner, individual by individual. So what we've worked through today on this webinar is working towards the setting of common agenda and shared measures through a community engagement approach. So in the beginning we were defining the issue, we were seeking data and lived experience to create urgency around the issue. We were understanding our community context, our appetite for collaboration, the connectedness of our leaders, the urgency for change. We've used some categorization and segmentation frameworks to determine who needs to be in the conversation from a general community point of view and from a top 100 partners point of view. And then we've hosted a variety of conversations in the community to better and more deeply understand the context and also the size and scope of the problem we're trying to address. And finally, we've used that process to refine the issue that we started with and build community buy-in towards a plan for change. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. I hope this has been a very useful use of your time, that you've deepened your understanding of collective impact and how you might start a collective impact initiative in your community, and most importantly that you have a number of tools and frameworks you can practically use to start applying this framework in your community if you think it is the right approach to solving the complex social problems you're grappling with. For more resources and support, please log on regularly to collaborationforimpact.com. Become a member, receive our monthly newsletter on collaboration and collective impact in Australia, and stay tuned for future webinars. We wish you all the best. Thanks for your time today.